Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Provincial Data and Reporting event. My name is Jeff Lamb, and I'm a director with Esri Canada. And I'm really grateful to be here today and to see you all in person. I feel like I've been stuck in the house with my dogs for 5 years here, and it's so nice to see everyone in person today. This is a pivotal moment for data in Canada. And I'm really encouraged that when we put out the message that data is a priority, so many people rallied around coming to this. So today is about data. And our focus today is to harness that power of the data that you have, and even more, the power of collaboration, of working together, using data to address one of the most pressing issues of our time, which is the housing crisis here we're having in Canada. So we've gathered today with a shared purpose to confront the complexities of the housing crisis, armed with data and analytics, reporting, and crucially, a commitment to collaboration across government agencies, communities, and public sector. So today in the room, we have representation from the province of Ontario and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So thank you for coming up here, a whole contingent at the front. Thank you for your commitment to being here today. We have Infrastructure Ontario in the room, who I feel like I'm doing a roast. Infrastructure Ontario in the room, who are building out the digital twin. And there's, don't go off script, Jeff. So, and we've invited over 50 municipalities, all with housing targets and interest in making our world better and working together. So we are increasingly living in a digital and data-driven world. Information holds unparalleled potential to drive meaningful change. And by leveraging the insight from this data, we can uncover trends and find gaps, formulate targeted solutions that really have the power to transform this crisis we're in. I've heard it compared to a World War II effort to fix this thing. And when I think about, I'm a bit of a history buff, so when I look at World War II effort, no one person fixed that. Everyone focused on the thing that they were good at, right? And I think in this room and on the call, we have all of the people we need to fix this data challenge, right? So we're going to cover that today. So throughout the course of the day, let's have open dialogue. And I'm actually kind of happy. Sorry for the folks online. I'm apologies. I hope we didn't lose many. Really happy for the dialogue that I heard in the room while we were having a bit of stress. That's our stress, because that's what matters. And I want to hear more of that today. Let's exchange ideas, and also let's challenge assumptions. So last thing I want to say, and I'm going to speed us up a little bit, but let's keep in mind the individuals who are impacted by this housing crisis. Sometimes we can get buried in the politics of it, the fear of it, the group dynamics of it, the organizational structures of it. There's a lot of people who are struggling. And I'll just tell you my personal story from the housing crisis and how it's impacting me. So personally, in my 20s, I worked really hard. I had 3 jobs. I got enough money to buy my first house. I flipped that house, bought another house, flipped that house, and I'm fine. I don't have a housing crisis issue. But I have an aging mother who's aging at home and choosing to live in her home because of the lack of options of a place for her to go. So for me, that's the face of the housing crisis. I have a stepdaughter who's in her 20s. Just this weekend, we moved her into her first apartment. $2,200 a month for a 1-bedroom basement apartment. How is she going to get ahead in life? This is what worries me, right? Now, her and her friend had a 60-inch television and nicely stocked alcohol cabinets. I think they're going to have fun. And I want to go to that party. But I feel from her that they've given up on the dream of homeownership. And in fact, where they put their energy and their money is into their cars, right? As a parent, you're like, no, that's a total depreciating. But that's what they feel they can have ownership over, right? And then I have a school-aged child. She's going to have to create a lemonade stand every weekend to put the $200,000 she would need by the time she turns the age I was, just to be able to afford something that's affordable. This is just not okay. And this is me. We're okay in life, right? Imagine those less fortunate. So let's try to remember that. That's all, just my call to action today as we go through the hard conversations of who's doing what and who's not doing what. Let's remember that there's people out there that are hurting. So thank you. Thank you for bringing your passion to this. Thank you to Alex Miller for all that you do, Alex, in supporting the community in Canada and building stronger communities using data. And thank you to everyone for joining us today. A few of the guidelines for this session. If you're in the morning session here is being recorded. So this will be available to everyone afterwards. Give us a week or so and we'll get it out to you all. In the room, I totally respect that you've got lots of business going on and you got to be on your phones, and I get it. Like, keep that stuff moving, okay? Just maybe just turn the volume down. I've got to take a call. Lots of room out there. These are listen-only format today. So in the morning, with the exception of the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, we're going to be delivering information out. In the afternoon, it's a two-way. Okay, so we encourage you to ask questions of our friends at MMAH. We do have mics in the room, and we will be monitoring the chatter online. We'll do our best to answer any questions that come through the online. So today's about networking, get to know each other. If you're sitting at a table with your colleagues, maybe later on split up and go get to meet other people. For those online, we have had a hard time in the past engaging with the folks online, and we wish we saw you today. And if you're 45 minutes away from here, you could drive and come and join us for the afternoon. But it is a listen only for online. We have technical support people ready for you, and let's get at it. So thank you for your cooperation, and let's make today a really big success. So I want to introduce and thank the city of Vaughan. Now, there's a lot going on in Vaughan. I call it the city of IKEA because I come down here all the time to go to IKEA. So if you're here, go get yourself some meatballs and something that needs an Allen key. I want to thank Frank De Palma for your support of GIS over the years, and of course the planning department. And today, Nancy, the director of planning, is going to be joining us. Nancy, would you like to come up and talk? So Nancy leads a multifaceted, knowledgeable, and well-skilled development planning team. She has over 36 years in the private and public sector, and she's going to welcome everyone here to Vaughan. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Good morning. I did want to extend a very warm welcome to all of you who have come to Vaughan this morning. Certainly for those of you also online, hopefully you are hearing everything that's happening right now. I know Jeff sort of stole some of my thunder and he spoke to some of the stats here. Actually, maybe you haven't gone through the stats, so maybe I will do that. But do want to extend a warm welcome again to our city staff, of course, that are here, all the representatives from Esri. And I know there's some significant members from Esri here today, so thank you for coming. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our ministry staff. Thank you again for coming today. And I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to York Region staff as well. And I know there's a table right over there. So thank you for coming as well. I'd like to extend the welcome on behalf of our Deputy City Manager, Hai Ching Zhu, who couldn't be here this morning, but he certainly extends his welcome to all of you as well. So what do you know about Vaughan? I'm certain most of you know that it is one of the fastest growing cities in all of Canada, and it continues to be, and these stats speak to that. It's been growing by 1.6% per year over the last 10 or 12 years, and we have a population now about 344,000. So we are growing. Development is happening. And you can see it. I mean, you can look at the skyline as you're coming up the highway. I see it. I live in Barrie, so I come down and I see the skyline and I go, wow, that's Vaughan. We have the Vaughan Metropolitan Center. We have all the developments that are occurring along several corridors in the city, which you probably have seen, Yonge and Steeles, of course, Highway 7. So things are happening here. When you look at the actual building permits that were issued last year alone, we saw $2.6 billion in building permits. So we're a pretty busy place. In terms of planning applications alone, we have about 180 per year over the last several years, and we're probably dealing with about 500 right now. So that's all the official plan amendments, zoning bylaw amendments, and plans of subdivision and associated development applications. So we're hopping, and we have a fairly strong, sophisticated staff to deal with it, but it's a challenge. And of course, with the new provincial legislation that keeps changing and coming down, we're trying to pivot and modify our planning processes to ensure that we have the most sophisticated, efficient processing of applications. So we've been doing our best over the last several years, and we've been working with the region with our PASS process, which is our pre-application submission process, our pre-application process, our PAC process, to try and align processes so that we actually receive approval ready, if you will, applications once they are submitted, that they've gone through very detailed terms of reference for submission requirements. And so when we get development applications, we're good to go. And that's to meet the provincial timelines and to ensure that we are getting those approvals out there faster so that we're getting actual housing built faster to meet, again, the housing needs. So we're doing our best. It's an extensive amount of work, but we're getting there. And I would agree with Jeff's comments earlier about data being the backbone of city building. I mean, certainly collaboration is critical in urban planning, not just to create the right policies and processes, but also so the needs of the residents and the communities are met. By focusing on a common set of data, risks are lowered, decision-making becomes transparent, and municipalities and development communities can act with confidence to build stronger communities to streamline decision-making throughout the development process. The city is proud to be a leader in data-driven decision-making and will continue to use data to inform our planning, ensuring we put citizens first. So again, Jeff spoke a little bit about the purpose of today's meeting, and throughout the day, you will explore the important role of data in development planning, particularly in addressing the opportunities surrounding data, visualization, and reporting. We have quite an exciting agenda with a number of speakers that have come from all over the province, which is great to see, to share with you their experiences in these other communities. We want to relay to you how to use data to help with decision-making, how to use it with technology to adapt to policy changes. And we know we're often, all of us, in the midst of these policy changes, and we're having to pivot and rework our processes to make sure that we're achieving what we need to achieve in the timelines that we have before us. So I want to again thank you for coming out today. I hope you get the chance to network, and I hope you get a chance to take away information that will assist you in allowing you to work better, improve your processes, and incorporate data in your day-to-day planning. So thank you again for coming out today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nancy. And who also drives down the 400 or up 400 and sees Vaughan, and every day it seems like there's a new tower here, right? It's incredible. So today you're going to see that all those towers in 3 dimensions through a digital twin. So a little peek for later on today. So here's our agenda. And actually, I think we've got ourselves back on track here. Maybe we were a little off on our original agenda. So I'm going to talk a little bit here about just to set the stage for the day on how we can put our data to work and harness this data we have. The City of Ottawa is online, and they're going to be showing some incredible work they've done on creating the digital twin in planning for the City of Ottawa. We're going to break, and we're all going to keep chit-chatting and get to know each other. And our friends from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing are going to come up and provide an update on Ontario Regulation 7323 and answer your questions. So I'd ask you to please start thinking about your questions, and that way we can be efficient when it's time to come around with the mics. And team at MMH, we will go very easy on today, I promise. We're going to, after the hybrid event, when we go offline after lunch, we have some amazing talks. So Juan Carlos Molina from the City of Vaughan, Team McKanji, are going to talk about a community engagement tool they've developed to help streamline development approvals. The town of Oakville just yesterday launched their exciting new planning hub, so you get to see it first. Unless you looked at it online yesterday. And second, we're going to hear from the World Council on City Data, and City of Vaughan have done some amazing things in that area. So we'll hear a great update on that and measures around ESG reporting and planning. We'll take another break, and then we will have a panel discussion this afternoon and a back and forth dialogue on hot topics in the future of planning. We'll get you out of here by 3 o'clock. Sound good? Excellent. So what does it mean to put data to work? What does it mean? First of all, it's a great term, right? Let's put data to work. We've got so much data sitting in our systems. In my short time with York Region, had the opportunity to work with the gang there, and we had over 600 systems at one point, just everywhere. The technology has been proliferating over the last 2 decades. And when technology gets purchased, the digital exhaust that comes out of that is data. And suddenly now we're in an area where that data has insight and the technology is not able to give it to us. So there's a lot going on in the market today. More than 500 municipalities across Canada are vying for a piece of the federal government's $4 billion housing accelerator fund. And there's more money coming out every day. There's a lot of goals to that fund, right? Increasing efficiency is what we hear a lot. Streamlining processes, development charge reviews, eliminating restrictions, developing affordable housing, design and implement guidelines. These are all being delivered through changes to policy. And I'm having a heck of a time with the remote here. So if someone from back could just come up and move me along here for a sec. So there we go. So a lot of funding, a lot of technology. As data people, let's leave that outside today, okay? We're here to talk about data and reporting. Here it is, data and reporting. So, I gotta think ahead here. So you think of this gentleman looking at his city, and is policy gonna fix the problem that he's looking to solve? He's trying to find something, and that something exists somewhere. The policies are great, not gonna help him. You can throw all the money at it as possible, still not gonna help him. Maybe the technology helps, but if there's not good data in it, what's the point of having that reporting, right? That's my point here. So, before I start going down a negative road and saying it's all terrible, it's not all terrible. Let's take a moment and celebrate some of the work you have done, right? I want to talk about the city of Burlington. So Anthony and colleagues have used AI as a modernized service delivery. If you've watched what's happened out west with the city of Kelowna, they've taken it even a step further where the whole planning process is fully automated, fully digitized, fully available through AI. And at any time and day and night, you can interact with it and ask questions of it that you would ask a planner, but that planner's hopefully at home sleeping like a baby because it's answering it for them, right? And what's really cool about it is you can actually click on it, and I love it because I'm a map person. It'll take you straight to the property and visualize what you're considering. So that stuff's coming, and Burlington has set the stage for doing similar work. The regional planning commissioners of Ontario use data to put a narrative into the market that was a data narrative, right? An informed narrative. So I thank you as a data person for putting that out. And City of Toronto has launched open dashboards and open hubs to try and get data transparency and insight into what's going on. The city of Mississauga just spoke. We have a whole table of more amazing things coming from the city of Mississauga on visualizing their housing targets, visualizing density, visualizing their policy. And of course, the province of Ontario, thank you for putting out dashboards that are tracking status of this work. You're going to see Oakville's dashboard today, and this just went live yesterday, so we're very excited about that. And in the bottom right, a lot of words, can't really see it, but I really applaud the city of Richmond Hill for putting data into their council resolutions and asking and advocating for change with respect to data at the provincial level. So I want to take a moment and I just want to get a show of hands. All right. Now, there's a lot of people in the room and we all have different titles and we all have things we love. And I'm sorry to distill us into an audience of two. But I want to put your hand up if you identify with the planning side of this. So the planning side, okay. And if you're online, I want you to do a heart or a thumb. And I'd like to see from the crowd there in the back. So I think it was about 40%, rough math in the room, are planners. Planners are making informed decisions with data, right? Hopefully. Now, I would imagine then the other side, show of hands up if you're a data person. You identify with, excellent, wow, okay. So we need to be working together. We need to be talking the same language. I'm very guilty of talking about data language when I'm talking to planners. And it probably goes like this. right? And when planners talk to me about planning things, it definitely goes like this, right? A lot like when I talk to my wife about what I do for work, and she's so so let's take a second and just take it down a level. So if I was able to put you into a group, not to label anyone, but on the left, there are consumers of information. You're consuming information. We all are. Residents are consuming, and we need to be fed with high quality, trusted data so that we can cut through the BS and make good decisions. On the right-hand side, we're producing data. And we got to remember, folks, when we're in our cubicles or at home in our pajamas these days, that data matters. That stuff you're doing matters, right? So we're producing data, but how do we connect the two and bridge the conversation? Well, in my mind, we are all connected, and we're all connected by what we all call the digital twin of society. Now, you can visualize this graphic, right? We have many levels of government and many departments, and at the end of the day, when you strip it all away, you can look at any given intersection in your community, and you can see representation of the electrical grid, the assets, the pipes, the waters, the sewer, the trees, the people. That's what citizens care about. They want the bus to show up, they want the water to flow, and they don't want to pay a fortune for everything, right? So we need to make it so that they can live a better life. So how can we do that as data people? We can double down on building out this digital twin. And it's not like we aren't already doing it, right? But I think what's happening, my opinion, is we just aren't seeing each other's perspectives. And there's 4 main groups that I would see here. We have producers of data. We have suppliers of data. So the producers create data, and the suppliers can funnel it into the digital twin. And folks like Province of Ontario, Infrastructure Ontario, the federal government, the regions, the school boards, anyone who has to look at it from an aggregated level, have access to what they need. And of course, it feeds data to the consumer. So we are all connected. And I think it's time we all sort of agree that digitally, the digital twin is what's going to bring us together across all of these layers. Today, we're just talking about that top layer. We could easily have another audience here of utilities and infrastructure talking about the same conversation. I forgot to hit click 2 minutes ago. Is this resonating? Yeah, a little bit. So what brings it all together? Well, we feel that we are connected by geography. We all live in a place. We all exist in a spot on Earth. And GIS is the ultimate integration tool. It's the ultimate technology tool that brings things together visually. And I would argue it's the ultimate social tool that brings people together. We all love maps. We all love looking at this stuff and seeing and visualizing where we are. We call this the geographic approach. And it's very simple. Your GIS, your data allows you to collect data, to visualize it, map it, analyze it, do geo-design and planning, and make good decisions that can inform action. This is how we create a better future. So if we're connected by geography, I would argue that we're fragmented by bad data. Now, ripped from the headlines recently, CMHC, and we're supporting our friends in CMHC, but the data being used isn't of highest quality right now. And you can see the impact to our cities in reporting on housing starts. And that is impacting things like policy decisions and potential funding available to then build out your programs to then help people in society, right? It all comes back to data. So what are we going to do about that? Well, everyone in the room here can fix this, okay? And you don't have to start from scratch. And if I may, John, put you on spot for a sec, could put your hand up. John Howling is in the room. He's not doing it. Well, he's over there somewhere. And his team have created a blueprint that all municipalities can use. It's a data and analytics master plan. They've had thought leaders for many years working on this inside. They've had Gartner, PwC, others, and they've openly shared this work online. I want you right now to go to york.ca/putting data to work this is a resource that his team over decades have worked on. Use it. Just take it, please. Don't go up for a brand new digital data strategy and have one of us consultants tell you a brand new story, right? Align to this. It's globally recognized. So I'm going to, use a bit of a housing analogy. So when we think about our data house and we want to get our data house in order, the first thing we need to do is have a blueprint. Well, there's blueprints out there, and I just showed you that. And there's many others. City of Hamilton had a great strategy done. There's other strategies, right? And they, by no means just pick a strategy, right? Just make sure the key is to stick with that strategy and to drive it forward and have executive support and push for it and fight for it, right? So once you've got your strategy and your blueprint for your home, well, you have to pour a foundation of your house. And when it comes to data, that's the foundation. There's 11 knowledge areas. I'm not going to get too nerdy data here for very good and aligned to the data management practices. But at the end of the day, it's about these 11 areas. I could sit with you by the end of the day and I could tell you all of the things you're doing that align to these knowledge areas. So let's just buzz through them really quickly. Data governance is priority. Priority. And, from an organizational structure perspective, it's time to pull data out of IT. I said it. It's time to put a director level position in place who's responsible for data, who's responsible for the stewardship of data, not for the system and the tech that the data sits in. That's great. No, for the quality of it, the stewardship of it, the management of it, the governance of it. Then once you've done that, is to architect data, build it, your house, so that it can grow, right? And that it's strong, that the foundation's not going to fall in. And to provide catalogs for people who can search and find your data. We've got to get data off the desktops and into systems and with metadata. And especially now with AI, we got to double down on data and get the quality up to speed and the metadata up to speed. Insights and reporting. You can't tell a story without tools to visualize. Now, look, do I want you to use Esri tools? Absolutely. I love them. They're amazing. But, use Power BI, use Click, use Tableau, use whatever way you can to tell that story, please, right? Because the folks who are not in the room, the folks who are in council, they don't care about this stuff, right? You got to tell a really informed story, and most of us are visual, right? Data literacy. We have to be able to talk and use the right terminology with data. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to get a master's in this stuff, but we just have to be able to launch digital academies where we can just give basic level training, right? My wife's also an anecdote. My wife is a teacher, and I'm often slightly concerned at the lack of digital training that teachers are provided in this area. So I'm often just doing basic literacy on technology for teachers. And I think to myself, gosh, how does that translate into the workplace for us? We love this stuff, but if the people who need to make decisions can't use it, what's the point, right? So we have to educate them on how to speak the language. Partnerships, you've got to work together. There's data is everywhere, and you can't do it alone. In two-tier, multi-tier systems, there's very, very easy ways to get that data moving. You're going to see a little bit in a second. Prepare your data, work with it, clean it up. I'm going to move on here. Get the quality up to a certain speed. There's quality scorecards you can create on your data. And if you assign data stewards to critical systems, their job in their performance should be a certain level of data quality. You can't talk about data without security, and we don't have people from Hamilton here in the room because of that, right? Yeah. So, you need to, let's not jump on the latest fads that are coming into the market because of a housing crisis that are asking you to extract your data and go put it in some system that's up, not even in this country, okay? You own technology that allows you to keep it secure and respect MFIPA. On the technology side, yeah, there's a lot of great tech, and let's keep using it. I would recommend, let's use what we have first, because the procurement journey is horrible. It's tough, right? So, maximize and push us as vendors push us, please. Push us to do better for you. Call your vendors. What are you doing for us? What's available? And we'll help you, right? And then highly aligned to the clerk's department. Clerks owns information, make sure content is accurately managed. So that's the foundation of your house. So now your foundation is poured. You've got to get some pipes coming into your house, right? Pipes for electricity, pipes for water, pipes for ground. And, our technology, Esri, is not what it used to be. GIS used to be a desktop tool, someone in the corner, really pretty cool person, but you never really knew what they did. We're still cool people, but it's now a societal GIS. So you can work on the desktop. Individuals in their projects, in planners, can be updating the zoning data, and it's shared to the whole organization from the source. And did you know that that data is actually also can share to a network of organizations? So Praffle, I always pick on you in these events. So Praffle, when you're putting a pipe in the ground, or updating a zoning bylaw in GIS, it's possible to share it with in real time as you hit save with everyone in your organization, and then have it shared with the region and potentially with the province and the federal government. So Praffle, did you know that? He did know that. I was a plant. Yes. So the region knows this because they built this. This is working today. And so we've got pipes coming into the ground. You got our foundation poured. What's the next part? Well, you've got to hire all the trades to build the house, right? So this house is the digital twin, and you're going to go layer by layer. You're going to get the framers come in. You're going to get the window and doors put in. You're going to get the roof put on. And my analogy starts to fall apart here. But as you go through each layer of the digital twin, these are tradespeople in planning. The province has done a wonderful job putting out a regulation. You're the furthest ahead in Canada on legislating and mandating data sharing. So thank you for doing that. And that's what's required, for us to get through this journey. It might not always be fun to do this, folks, but it's required, right? If you're in a wartime effort, some things aren't fun, right? So let's try and make it easier, right? So, within the province, there's the current regulation has 14 layers required to share from 29 municipalities. 50 of the municipalities have a housing pledge. So that regulation data, I'm going to show you an example actually coming up, can easily be streamed into a common provincial aggregated view. So once the trades are in place, there we go. Well, went too fast. Well, what do you do once you get a house? You move in, you have a party, right? So a year ago, I stood in front of you all, and one of the action items coming out of Oakville was, hey, let's try and make this thing happen. Let's just see if we can make it happen, right? We weren't asked to, but you as a group said, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's try and get our regulation data out of spreadsheets and out of our emails, which really is a bit scary, right? From an MFIPA perspective, extracting that data, putting it in an email, ooh, right? So, and then I can't imagine Scott will talk about what it must be like to receive those emails, right? So we did some quick math and have estimated that over $3 million in Ontario taxpayer dollars is going to this exercise of just data extraction. So there's a better way, as you saw at the event. So I applaud the town of Oakville and say Waterloo, Niagara Falls, Cambridge, missing two, excuse me. They'll come up in a sec. And we got together, and within a couple of months, throughout the business of our lives, stood this up, right? This is live data. I can't show it to you because I want to show you the window into Oakville's data. But on the top right-hand side, Frank Gaynor put out 10 years worth of planning data, all aligned to the regulation 7323, connected to their Amanda system and ready to hit the big red button and share it to whoever may want to see it, whether it's Halton Region or the province. Of course, then you can build out dashboards from the source of truth. I think that's all people want. It's just, let's get to the source of truth. So we feel Ontario is ready for this change, and we've spent a long time, like my colleague, Mike, and others in the room, Dave Farnsworth and Kyle and Paul Sala and Bob, we've been Mark, I'm probably gonna miss someone. We've been just talking to you all, and some of you are like, yeah, let's do this. I missed Vaughan. How did I miss Vaughan? We're in their building. So City of Vaughan connected, and here's just the state of affairs. So should there be a decision that municipalities and the province want to sort of cut that time down, we're ready to go. Now, more importantly, or in addition to that, is the whole infrastructure conversation, right? We can't leave out the regions in this conversation. You can't. So we also talked about the pipes required and the roads and the infrastructure. So you can see if there were future regulations in that area, this is it's primed, it's ready to go. So what next? Well, how are we for time? I think I've almost, look at that, we're at 10:30. So this work has been endorsed by the Ontario Big City Mayors. A resolution went forward to the province. We encourage you to look at this text, bring it forward to your council. They unanimously agreed that this was a good thing because it saves time, and it also recommends investment in data staff. So we're going to wrap up here as we queue up the City of Ottawa. And I want to tell you that, let's come back to this again. If you put your hand up as a planner or you put your hand up as a data person, here's how we'd be better off, right? Imagine a day when the pipelines are connected. We've got a mature data culture, data's flowing. We've got a one window view connected right to the source data, and there's decisions are being informed. Informed by good trusted data. That's really all we can hope for as a group of data people. So I'll end on this slide. A lot of text on here. Our premier says we need to use every tool in our toolbox to build more homes. You've got tools in your toolbox, and they're good tools. They're DeWalt level tools, right? So let us help you. And the impact of that is everyone's caring for data. There's increased trust across the board. Your staff time's going down so you can focus on higher priority things. Your costs are going down. You're expanding your workforce, you're increasing collaboration. And the last thing I'll say is let's just start where you are. So thanks for this time. And that's my talk. So we're going to invite from online the City of Ottawa, who are going to take some of these foundational concepts that I've laid here for the day and show you some pretty cool stuff. So.
Good morning, everybody. It's Randall Roger here from the City of Ottawa. Sorry, we're unable to make it down, but we had a little surprise snowfall in the area, so just keeping it safe. So it's wonderful to be here, and I'd like to thank Jeff for that excellent discussion this morning, teeing things up. I'm here with JF Dion, a geospatial strategist on my team, and as I said, I'm Randall Roger. I'm the program manager for the Geospatial Analytics Technology and Solutions branch. And thank my wonderful team for all their great work on this project, and wouldn't be able to provide that without them. So thanks to their techno curiosity and bringing their individual talents to bear to create a new tapestry of information for the City of Ottawa, and increased transparency, and also hopefully to build more livable neighborhoods for everyone. I wouldn't be a good geographer if I didn't throw up a map to give you a little bit of context and orient you to the area. I was looking in the Oakville dashboard there a minute ago, and I saw Ottawa kind of off on its own, which is kind of how we are. So we're really excited to be here with you folks and share our data journey. As you can see, we've got a fairly big geography to deal with, nearly 2,800 kilometer squares. Apologies to City of Vaughan. For some reason, you guys weren't on this graphic that we provided to the city manager's office, but we can work to fit you into Ottawa as well. So don't worry about that. So we do have a big geography, and for those who are not aware, we are an amalgamated area. So the former municipalities and the region brought together to form the new City of Ottawa. So that's just a little background, a little bit of context there for you all. I just wanted to show you where we land within the City of Ottawa overall organization chart. So we are embedded with the Planning, Real Estate, and Economic Development Department, and we've been there for quite a number of years. So we're comfortable speaking planner. We are on the data side, so we also do speak data geek. as well. My unit consists of 3 areas, so we're dealing with that diverse set of technology. So listening to Jeff, it really resonated with me about the infrastructure. That's our Geospatial Information Center, which is a partnership with all the local utilities. So anything under the ground, all the infrastructure, water and wastewater network, connections to asset management is handled within that group. And we have our geospatial projects and operations, which is planning, official plan, zoning bylaws, and the numerical and analytics that go along with that. And then I have some technology and solution strategists that are dealing with these large projects that we'll get into, like, of course, the digital twin. There's many definitions for a digital twin. And for us here at the City of Ottawa, it's really a 3D model of Ottawa. So it's the drivers behind that. We had our official plan that was passed, in the past, and there was an amendment to that to provide better numerical and visual analysis. And we had already begun our journey on the digital twin for the new zoning bylaw consolidation to bring that type of technology and capabilities forward. So it aligned with what we were doing. And so we agreed that the best way to provide that new capabilities was through the digital twin. And that's what was passed forward. So that's how we got started our journey. We're just going to skip a stone across the top of this project. We could go deep into a lot of different areas, but I just want to keep it high level. And then I'm going to pass it over to JF, who's going to take you on the trip of the real live edition of it and walk you through some interesting scenarios. Want to talk about the foundation. For us, the foundation is our aerial acquisition project. We have on here the slide modernized, but I would say we reimagined that entire project, moving from a 3-year cycle to a yearly cycle, true 2D orthos and a 3D photorealistic mesh, collecting LiDAR every 3 years so that we have that great surface. And from that surface, we can move up and below the ground because we're interested in both parts. If you want to accelerate your housing, you need the infrastructure in place. We talk a lot about shovel-ready projects. So this is a program that by having that information coming in more regularly, we're prepared with better data and have that surface foundation for our digital twin to home run all that information into one spot. Another key piece of that is our reality capture and data intelligence program. Obviously, we need to collect in near real time. We can't wait a number of years to get that information. We need to be able to go out in short order. So collecting the data, we can have large volumes in a short amount of time from mobile mapping. People like to make fun, say you're working with toys. These aren't really Fisher-Price toys, and we have to do a lot of hard math and science to work with this information. And this is about AI and machine learning. So we need the machines to do the work and then have the humans make the decision. So that's our partners in planning and engineering across the corporation. So it's really about collaboration and working together and providing information in a more timely fashion for them. The digital twin is also about taking us from a static to a dynamic geospatial approach, pulling people out of their Excel spreadsheet and that mindset. If you look at the table, we obviously have to work with a lot of policies and procedures within planning, and those have recently changed for us. Humans do not intuitively understand a table that has hubs, corridors, transects, front, rear, side yards, min and max heights. But if we sit down with the planners and we put that cookbook together, then we can use the programming languages to recreate that model in 3D, which is what you see on the right. And so we can develop alternate scenarios really quickly by changing the variable. So if someone updates the table to say now it's 3 to 4 stories in order to meet the Housing Accelerator Fund, we just update that value in the table, and then the model changes to reflect that. So that's very powerful. One of the things we talked about the planners during this process is we don't need the final best solution. The modeling can help us get to that final best solution by modeling alternative scenarios nearly on the fly. So that's a great boon for us. And as humans, if you've done a home renovation, the first thing you ask yourself is, what will it look like? People want to see it in context. They want the realism to understand the impacts of those changes. So what is the density of my neighborhood now? And what is the impact of the proposed change that you're heading for in the OP? The OP is the vision, as we all know. And there's policies like the new zoning bylaw that will say add the teeth to that. We also have work on secondary plans. We're taking all our 2D and bringing them into 3D. The unique thing about that is we're using ArcGIS Urban for that technology. Is you can have the metrics and the numerical analysis tied to that particular secondary plan, and they can change depending on the area, because not every secondary plan has identical goals. So we can tailor them to meet those needs. So that's a real driver for us moving forward, is having the planners design first in that 3D environment, and we can still create the 2D products from that after. Obviously, we want the model to stay current, not only through our reality capture and our aerial acquisition program, but we want the development community to submit their building information models, so the facade. So as an example of here, so then we can do things like shadow and solar analysis to keep that model current. We don't want to be going out to the public and not showing what's proposed in their neighborhood. And that allows them to see it in context. And JF's going to show you the power of that when he gets to his presentation. It's great. Digital twin is about collaboration. So while we're focused today on the housing side, we have to respect that we want to build in the appropriate areas, and we need to collaborate with the folks in engineering and infrastructure and asset management, public health, because all these things lead to a more livable neighborhood. And we understand there's vulnerable or at-risk populations that we have to care for as well. Through to real-time as-built is one of our aspirational goals. So putting the tools in the hands of inspectors and asset management and those type of folks, so they can go out and get that information in near real time, to solar capacity on roofs to help our folks in climate change and resiliency, which is another important factor in the city. So we have to work with all our partners in order to help move that housing front forward. So those are just a few examples there to even if we have the salt dome scanning, which is important today since we got our snowfall and we don't want people slipping and falling. It wouldn't be a good presentation if I didn't talk a little bit about bureaucracy. We all know we have to have our standards in place. Jeff made a great point about metadata, taking our existing schedules, which were of 3D information, but shown in a 2G form, and pushing those up. So going to council to get their approval for those changes. Right through to how we accept information and share it with our clients. So a lot of work on the background, change management, training of my staff, training of our partners in planning and other areas. But there's a lot of background work. It's not glorious stuff, but it's definitely necessary and helps move our agenda forward. So I'll close this part up with just a little roadmap of our digital twin. And I talked about the pieces to build our foundation, modernizing and reimagining our programs. Where we are now is we're working with our folks in IT to deploy Enterprise ArcGIS Portal, which will then set us up to have staff working directly for development review and policy and planning and environmental stuff on their own in this environment. And then heading toward public-facing interface for the public engagement and transparency. And then obviously a key thing, the release of the new zoning bylaw. So lots of great work going on. And I want to thank my team for all their efforts. And I'll pass it over to JF, who will give you a live look at our digital twin. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Randall. I'll skip stone skip, you say in English, across the pond to show you where we are. I created this quick web experience builder to kind of take some of the best of breed that we're working on right now. This will soon to be available to all of our at least internal clients at the city. This work, I'm sure some of you have seen it, but for the people that haven't, we've been building this for the last couple of years now, collecting the best of our 3D data sets across the city. We've augmented the quality to LOD2, 2.5 in most of the urban cores, used LiDAR data to augment the details. And then this is more than just boxes of buildings. Everything is attributed. So we have details on dates built. So it's a temporal data set, and every building as a pedigree. It will follow its life cycle from start to end. And although we've built some tools to keep that data set as closely as possible to reality, I don't think it'll ever be perfect, but it's a start. With the augmentation of our data collection program, aerial wise, we update our city mesh yearly to about 4 or 5 centimeters. This mesh is of high quality. We use Sure engine, which is the father of ArcGIS Reality. And so we're probably going to jump to reality this year, but this gives a fresh look at the environment, and any GIS layer can be overlaid. For example, let's look at the transit data sets here. So I can quickly overlay the walk time distance to each of our LRT station across the overlaid through the digital surface model, and the mesh gives a really good look and feel. We converted a lot of our data to 3D. This is our official plan protected sight lines to the Parliament Hill, maximum height of buildable envelopes for also the protected heights to the Parliament Hill. And we have loaded all of our OP layers, and this is just an example of one that is available. The zoning bylaws are all moved to 3D, and this is actually all the data I'm showing you is connecting to existing geo services. Some of them are connected to geo services. So this bylaw is live. So anytime a new amendment is approved, it takes effect in the twin. And this is just an outlook to the new zoning bylaw. The new zoning bylaw is built in 3D. So all of our new schedules will also be built in a full 3D environment. So not just 2D, but we'll have all the faces of the built environment in 3D. Because we're connecting all of our buildings to data, we actually have, we're not connecting to parcels anymore. So now I'm getting questions asked on actual square footage by the number of floors on each of these buildings. So having a very detailed envelope connected to factual data makes it extremely powerful. And as you can see here, this is one of our older neighborhoods, but you also can see the inbuilt, the new buildings that have been appearing in the last decade and filling bigger box on those parcels. So it's interesting to see the quick change in some of our neighborhoods. Connecting these same buildings to studies that have been happening over the last 5 or 6 years, we didn't know that the crisis would be that much, but all these studies are now becoming extremely valuable. So this is our 15-minute neighborhood, and we can see shortage areas or islands of poor services, and we can click on each of these building and identify why these buildings have scored so low, and see what the services are for each of the available buildings in the area. So we're looking at creating new tools to cross-pollinate between each layers to create new reports. And I'm not going to pressure Esri to work on a 3D dashboard, but I can't wait for the 3D dashboard to be available. We talked about procedural modeling, and this is our table 7, and this is really the first pass or first cut at it. It combines our 2D designation with our setbacks, with our height schedule, with our neighborhood and major and minor corridors. So in just by adapting that table and that procedural model, we can quickly create new scenarios and apply them to the landscape, the lot fabric, and see what things could look like. Let me just jump quickly to ArcGIS Urban here, and then that'll be a segue to my next slide. So I'm looking at a secondary official plan in the west end of the city. This is one of the new LRT station. We have a designed community plan that was brought in, and this parcel of land has already started being redeveloped. So there is quite a bit of change in this area. So quickly we built a set of metrics, brought up all of the buildings in massing, and attach our metrics to each of these floor types, space use types attached to the designation, modified some of the parcel to have the correct space use type at the surface of the ground, and then let the analytics take the massing and automatically create the reporting. And then what if let's move everything to a maximum height and space available in each of these designation, and then see what the future could hold for this area of the city, and then kind of extrapolate the population and tweak some of these metrics to have a better idea of the pressure on our infrastructure in the future. And then let's bring in our potential future built out, table 7 from the official plan that was procedurally created. That procedural work is going to go to a higher phase. We're starting to look at it now to actually have planes with different podiums, and also inserting sun shading in the modeling so that we can have optimal light in these higher buildings to have a better living environment for our population. So what that means is that I can bring all of these secondary plans within my digital twin. So here's another one here that I'm combining with our LRT, and I can see some of the other plans more in the core, and have a overview of all of the proposed plans in the city. And then in our future release, everything will go public. We talked about reality capture. Here's an example. This is Bank Street, just south of Riverside. And this is a study of taking the overhead hydroelectric power lines and putting them underground. And so what would it look like without the hydro assets, not in the way of our streetscape. So quickly, we're able to create this 3D data and publish it to the twin for evaluation. But the power of classifying and doing AI on all this data is we can also extract the data that we wanna use as a new potential data set or assets, and how to quickly create new asset management systems or integrate it to our existing asset management systems. So what we're doing now is doing a proof of concept to scan all of our right-of-ways and create a mobile capture program that will cover all of our visible streetscape using point clouds and 4K, 8K, 360 street view type imagery that we'll be able to use anywhere in our main corridors or on our secondary neighborhood streets, and be able to classify this data and extract features to augment the positional accuracy of all of our assets across the city. Development review is a big piece of our digital twin. You can see here some BIM models appearing. You got all of our construction, development application, building permits. So everything's in one space. And by a quick search, I can quickly go to an area. Next step will be to create combined reporting across the city on all of our active and inactive building permits and development programs. This application is not out fully yet to all of our clients, but we're already doing a lot of pre-consultation work with some of our planners to integrate some of the proposed development in the scape to see the effects of new buildings in their environment. I'm just going to close these pieces here so I can have a better view of our BIM models. The tools that come with the basic Esri environment are very powerful. I'll just show you, we can do quickly some sun shading just for daylight. One of the very, very interesting tool is the shadow duration. And then we can quickly generate date, time, and doing full duration of shadows over certain periods of time, mostly days. We do advanced analytics on larger areas, as Randall explained, for some solar radiance for our solar potential, but also for development purposes. We can do some line of sights. I'm sure you've seen some of these, but these are extremely powerful. We can create various location and then move them around. As a observer, I can look at all of these point of views and create some pretty powerful analytics. And really, one of the tool that I really appreciate is the slicer tool, and this is really impressive when you're taking your BIM model and you can almost see every floor. Well, you can see every floor in every space you type, and you can actually go in and do some measurement directly on your floor space. Very powerful. But that brings us to underground infrastructure. So our group also manages the underground infrastructure for the city. When you put things in 3D, you suddenly see that, everything looked really good in 2D, but then in 3D, you see that, well, there's still a lot of work to be done to make this data as close to reality as possible. I think we're halfway there, but that really opened our eyes in new ways to manage our underground data. So we're doing a lot of work right now with that group to clean this piece of data. We're working side by side with assets to find new ways of collaborating with their data. For example, they've done hundreds of scans of all their underground infrastructure. We're just opening the can on that one. So we'll be able to integrate all of the underground scans directly in the twin. So you'll be able to click on a manhole and see what's going on underground. And the bringing, and this one always does that because I'm give me a second here. Here we go. We'll pull the full model. Then bringing all of our infrastructure with our BIM standards to be able to manage the city's infrastructure as it comes alive. You're looking at the Rito station here downtown. And let me just zoom out of this one and then see all of the underground infrastructure into one single view. One last slide, and I think I'm done. Yes, that's it. That's my last slide. So kind of an overview of the city, looking at our digital 3D mesh. So I'm done. Thank you very much.
I just have one word. Wow. So let's take another moment and just a huge thank you to the gentleman from Ottawa. It's really hard first to present a live demo and to do one when you're not in the room. I want to tell you folks on the line, you can hear a pin drop in this room. Everyone was so into it. There are a few audible gasps at a couple of moments, especially on the BIM and the underground infrastructure. So I just want to say one more round of applause for an incredible job. Thank you. That data was so detailed, I could see into the Prime Minister's office. That joke, care of Mike Sprayson. So we're going to go to break, and we're going to get our friends from Ministry of Municipal Affairs on. As we head into the session coming up, I'd encourage everyone to think of your question, make the question relevant and short so we can get through a bunch of them. And we'll see you soon. Thank you. So we're going to carry on with our morning here, make sure we stay on track. I'd like to introduce Scott Sterling. He's a senior policy advisor with Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and is going to provide an update on Ontario Regulation 7323. You'd be about 15 minutes or 20 minutes, and then we'll open it up for Q&A in the room. Well, Scott, thank you.
Morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. Thank you, Jeff, for the introduction, and obviously City of Vaughan for hosting this event, and all the various municipal staff and managers that have joined us today. As Jeff mentioned, I am here to talk to you a little bit about Ontario Regulation 7323, which is the Municipal Planning Data Reporting Regulation. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to follow Ottawa's presentation, but I will certainly do my best. So some of you are quite intimate with this regulation. I know that not all of this will be new information for you, but I understand that there are 21 additional municipalities on the invite list. So some of this will be very exciting for you. As you are likely aware, there have been a few amendments to the Planning Act over the last few years. One of those amendments made through Bill 109 gave our minister the authority to request information on planning matters from municipalities in Ontario. The intent of the legislative amendment, of course, was to give our ministry the ability to develop a regulation, a municipal data reporting regulation, through which we would collect information from municipalities on various planning matters. The goals with implementing this regulation, of course, are to help close informational gaps. We want to provide our ministry with the necessary data needed to assess and monitor trends over time with respect to various planning instruments and other planning matters. We want to provide insight into planning performance across Ontario as well. The number of applications that our municipalities are dealing with, the number of decisions and types of decisions that are occurring, and amendment or appeals information. The frequency and the type of appeals that are being made. So that sort of information we're trying to get more insight into. And lastly, we want to provide our ministry with consistent and accurate data with which we can base future housing and land use planning policy decisions. As is the purview of our ministry, we want to make sure we're making data-driven decisions. So getting more into sort of the need for this data. The first, of course, is, as I just mentioned, is to promote data-driven decisions. Before the introduction of this regulation, our ministry didn't, at least formally, require municipalities to report information on key land use planning data on a consistent basis. And this information, as I just said, is very important for informing evidence-based decisions around planning policy. It's also important information for measuring progress. So there have been a number of changes to the land use planning framework in the last few years. And with both qualitative and quantitative objectives, it's important to have data to effectively monitor the efficacy of these changes, to see how, are they working? Are they achieving their original intent? So the regulation and of course the data we collect through the regulation will help us in that regard. And lastly, the regulation is, it's a step towards achieving a more robust data inventory of land use planning applications, geospatial data, all of which is data that can help provide insight into our land use planning system in Ontario, and hopefully, ideally, highlight opportunities for improvement. So what are we actually collecting? There's sort of like two distinct categories of information that we're collecting through the regulation. The first is what we consider planning application data. That's found under Schedule 2 of the regulation. And the second set is geospatial data, which is found under Schedule 3. The planning application information is reported to our ministry on a quarterly basis. So we get 4 submissions every calendar year. I'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of the frequency of reporting and stuff on the next slide. But what we're talking about is application level data for 7 different planning instruments, which I believe are all listed here. Yep. And we also collect information on community infrastructure and housing accelerator orders and minister zoning orders as well. So that all sort of falls within the grouping of our planning application data. The geospatial data that we collect is collected on an annual basis. And unlike the planning application data, it requires a submission of actual geospatial files and their associated metadata. So that includes things like, MTSAs, employment areas, employment area conversions, that sort of thing. So the frequency of reporting. So I mentioned on the previous slide that there's sort of 2 distinct categories of information from which we collect information. There it is. So the first is the planning application data. The second is the geospatial data. Very similarly, we have 2 distinct reporting frequencies. So the first, the planning application data, comes to us on a quarterly basis. And so 4 times per year. And what we've done is, in an effort to give municipalities some lead time, we've given them a full extra quarter to provide that information to us. So effectively, the way it works is, if we consider quarter 1, January 1st to March 31st, which just concluded, that's the Q1 report that needs to be provided. Municipalities need to provide that to us by June 30th, which is the last day of quarter 2. So we're trying to give them some runway to be able to assemble the information, prepare the reports, and of course, submit them to us. Excuse me, sorry, I'm getting over a cold as well. The geospatial data is submitted to us on an annual basis. So we actually just passed the first reporting deadline for geospatial data, which was March 31st of this year. We haven't yet had an opportunity to really dig into that information, but we are certainly excited to do so. But very similarly, the logic is the same, where we don't expect the annual submission of geospatial data to come to us on January 1st. We want to give municipalities lead time to prepare that information. So March 31st every year is when the geospatial data is supposed to be coming to our ministry. And the formats of the reports. So the actual information that needs to be included in the report is outlined in the regulation itself. So Schedule 2 and Schedule 3 will detail the specific items that need to be included in the report. In addition to that, our ministry has developed some sample templates that municipalities can use, which we hope is assisting them with actually filling in the reports and submitting them. And we've also prepared a municipal user guide. And so that tries to plain language the regulation a little bit, just to make sure that the reports municipalities are preparing are in compliance with the regulation itself. The current process is that quarterly reports are submitted to an ontario.ca email in an Excel workbook format. Annual reports include both the submission of the geospatial data. So there we're actually asking for the machine readable files, as well as an Excel template with metadata for each file. So it's just helping us understand what the file is, how it should be used, and that sort of thing. So the current scope of the regulation, pardon me. So as it stands, the regulation applies to 29 municipalities in Ontario. You can see them all listed here on the slide. When we set out to develop this regulation, we recognized that we would be formalizing a new data collection process. And we wanted to start small. We didn't want the regulation to apply to the entirety of Ontario. So we recognized, it's a brand new process for our ministry. It's a brand new process for municipalities. So we wanted to tailor our approach to make sure the implementation and the rollout of the regulation was as smooth as possible. We wanted to be able to test the functionality of the regulation with, a subset of municipalities to see, what a response rate's like. Is the information we're collecting, is there utility there? Is it what we intended when we, set out to develop the regulation? And doing all that is much more manageable with a smaller number of municipalities. So while this list represents some of the larger and faster growing municipalities, it also represents some of the more resourced and digitally mature municipalities in Ontario. So ideally, they'd be the best equipped to accommodate a regulation of this nature. So far, all 29 municipalities have really sort of exceeded expectations with respect to the timeliness of reporting, the quality of reporting. So thankfully, we weren't too far off the mark there. And the current status. So we're actually really close to the 1-year anniversary of the implementation of this regulation. So it was filed on April 6th of last year. So tomorrow marks the 1-year anniversary of the regulation. What this means is we've received four quarters worth of information from the 29 municipalities, as well as one annual GIS submission. Unfortunately, we haven't finished our assessment of the Q4 data. Some of that is still rolling in, but between the Q4 data and the geospatial data, we're very eager to see what the data tells us. To give you a better understanding of what we actually do at the ministry when these reports come in, ministry staff undertake an inventory. We want to get an idea of what's coming to the ministry, how much data are we actually dealing with, and then we'll use that information to sort of strategize our reviews. Each and every report that is submitted is reviewed line by line by a ministry staff person for completeness and accuracy, which, as Jeff mentioned earlier, is not a small undertaking. It is a lot of work on the behalf of ministry staff. But we do like to take that sort of QA/QC approach to identify any issues with the information in the report. So it could include really trivial things, just like formatting issues, missing information, but it also includes things like logical inconsistencies and other issues that we find as part of that review. Every issue that we do find is flagged. We compile every issue into a summary table, and we actually share that back to the respective municipality for their review and, if needed, correction. We don't make any assumptions with the information. So I do apologize if you've received an email from us asking about something that seems really quite silly or minor, but we don't want to take any liberties with the information. We want to make sure that what is coming to us is complete and accurate, and we want the municipalities to sort of hold the responsibility of making sure that the data is clean and accurate. So with that being said, the 29 municipalities that we've worked with have been very, very helpful, very willing to work with our staff, and very collaborative, and have provided responses to us in a very quick manner. So while I was up here, wanted to take the opportunity to personally thank you all for that hard work as well. I know there's lots going on in the municipal sphere with respect to planning, and this is just one piece, but your hard work is certainly appreciated. So just the numbers at a glance to give you sort of an understanding of how much information we're actually dealing with. It is a very large number of planning applications. So across the 29 municipalities, we're over 4 quarters, we're looking at more than 17,000 planning applications that were reported. This is just for the actual planning instruments themselves. It doesn't account for geospatial data or the minister's zoning orders that also come into us. So we're looking at over 4,600 in Q1, 4,900 in Q2, 4,200 in Q3, and as of Wednesday afternoon, about 3,400 for Q4. We're still waiting on a few submissions, so that number will certainly change, but it's definitely on the same trajectory to meet sort of the 4,000 applications or so that we receive every quarter. So it is a pretty substantial undertaking for ministry staff to review all of this information and work on updating it and correcting issues that we find with municipalities. Pardon me. So what have we actually been using the data for? At this time, our focus has really been on sort of the administrative nature of making sure the regulation is working as intended. We really want to build a baseline data set. So one of the biggest things we've been focusing on is just that, is sort of assembling a consolidated data set of clean data that we validated with municipalities, from which we can, eventually use to monitor trends over time. That is definitely one of the goals with this regulation, is to see how the planning system is functioning across these municipalities, volumes of applications, things like that. We can't monitor trends over time without the time component. So like I said, we've only received four quarters worth of data. We haven't undertaken the assessment of Q4 yet. So really, effectively, we're looking at 3 quarters of data. It can be challenging to draw conclusions from such a small subset of data. So right now, we're just focused on trying to build out a strong sort of foundational baseline data set. Again, it's a new process, both for our ministry, but also for municipalities, where we're very understanding of that. So we're focused on, ensuring the municipalities understand how to adhere to the requirements of the regulation, improving the quality of the submissions and reports, and working through issues with our municipal partners, which kind of leads into item 2, which is sort of testing and monitoring the functionality of the regulation itself. Are municipalities able to provide what we've asked for? Is it coming in the format that we were expecting? What's the overall quality of the information we're receiving? And is there something that can be done to improve that? And ultimately, is the information coming to us in a way that is useful? Is what we expected when we drafted the regulation what we're actually getting? And if not, how do we fix that? Lastly, we're working on increasing our internal resources as well. The current workload is very intensive. I'm sure it's also intensive for municipal staff as well. So on our end, we're looking to increase our resources. So whether that be additional staff to support municipalities with questions, the development of additional guidance information, we're constantly exploring how we best can support the municipal partners as we navigate this relatively new endeavor. So the next steps, pardon me. We know that the work on this regulation is really just beginning. We're continuing to look at improving our internal processes to achieve a more efficient review process on our end. We're continuing to explore opportunities to better support municipalities as well. So like I said, that could include the resourcing here at MMAH, but we're also exploring alternative reporting solutions that would be less resource intensive for municipal staff and facilitate a much smoother process overall. We'll continuously assess the functionality of the regulation as well. The utility of the information we're collecting, and should the need arise to make amendments, then of course we will do so. Any amendments we make, of course, would be consulted on through the environmental and regulatory registries. But amendments to the regulation don't only have to be ministry driven. We want sort of like an open, collaboration between our municipal partners as well. So if you do have ideas around how the regulation can be improved, changes that can be made, we're always open to hearing what our municipal partners have to say about the regulation as well. And it sounds like we'll have some opportunity to do that now, which is great. That I think concludes my portion of the actual presentation. My director, Charlene Cressman, has also now joined us on the line. She might be assisting with some of the questions that are coming in. But Jeff, I think we're good to open the floor. Excellent.
Well, before we open the floor and you get your questions ready, maybe put your hand up if you have a question. We'll come around. Can you imagine every day going to work in the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and dealing with all this data? It's a lot of data you have to work with. And then you get in the car and you hear about the housing crisis, and they go home, turn on the news, it's the housing crisis. Is that what people talk about? So let's just take a moment and appreciate the environment which our data colleagues here at the province are in. And thanks, Scott, for your time here to come and provide this update. And welcome, Charlene. We can see you.
Oh, great. Thanks.
So we have a question, Catherine.
Hi there. I have two questions. One, have you considered, now that it's been a year, launching a data exchange, a common data exchange where municipalities can upload their data and for you to consume instead of sending an Excel spreadsheet that can also fit into a dashboard, similar to what the town has just launched, a data hub. So the same idea. So that's my question one. Related to this, question two is in regards to the data standards for planning and development. So that standard is being developed. I believe the province sponsored that project. So how do you, would that impact this reporting requirement, or what does that actually mean for the future? Some of us are on that technical committee, and I don't know there's clarity around how would the province actually be using this.
It's a great question. So Charlene, I'm happy to, I think she's frozen. I'm happy to take the lead.
Sorry.
And so with respect to your first question regarding the data exchange, it's a great question. We're certainly open to alternatives to the Excel workbook. We know that that's not a perfect solution. I'm sure, as you can all appreciate, things have been moving very quickly at the ministry with various changes to the land use planning system. Our regulation was just one of those many changes. If you remember, I think from start to finish, we from the initiation of the regulation to the implementation was about 6 months. So we were really focused on getting the legislation in place, making sure the regulation would function. And now that we've had a year's worth of data, we have a better understanding of what we're actually receiving, the volume of what we're receiving. We recognize that it's certainly a resource intensive process. So we're actively exploring ways to improve that process. A data exchange is absolutely a great opportunity to accomplish that as well. So it's definitely something that we're considering as we discuss things at the staff level for sure. With respect to your second question, the Ontario data standard. Another good question. So we've closely monitored the process of that work as well. One of my colleagues, Gary, participating in that working group as well. So he's keeping us updated with how that progresses. If it does result in changes needing to be made to the regulation, we will of course amend the regulation to remain consistent with the data standard. It's all part of the government's process of becoming a more digital oriented government. So we're just trying to keep tabs on how that's progressing and what the implications might be for our regulation. It's possible that some of the terms or definitions that they're changing might impact how the information reported in our regulation is collected by municipalities. We're very cognizant of that, so we'll keep track. And as it stands today, we don't see any immediate changes to the regulation as a result of that data standard, but that could change. And I don't know if Charlene is back or not.
Yeah, I was wondering if Charlene heard the question and pretended she was frozen.
Sorry,
So the last question came from Nina Marinova, the town of Oakville. And when you do ask a question, I forgot to ask if you could say your name and where you're from. That'd be great.
Hello, I'm Michael Wright, the manager of planning research and analytics in city planning, City of Toronto. And I want to thank Esri Canada and the City of Vaughan for hosting this event and bringing us all together to be able to have these important conversations. Jeff, per your point, it's a real moment with respect to housing and housing issues, and we're making tremendous efforts individually and collectively in order to create more effective information in order to enable better decision making. And events like this help us to inform and share what the opportunities are for doing this kind of work. So I really appreciate the opportunity. With respect to the regulation, there are a couple of issues that I wonder what the ministry's thoughts are on. One of them has to do with the geospatial requirement, in that the request for some of those layers and information may involve matters that have been adjudicated before the tribunal, and that digital versions of this information don't exist in some municipalities like mine. And so I'm wondering about the intent of the request, how the information would be used internally, how it might be made available, because it will therefore affect matters currently and in future before the tribunal. And therefore, what we'd be able to create and provide to the ministry. That's my first question.
It's a really good question. So just so I'm clear, is you're saying there's certain files that we've asked for as part of Schedule 3 that have gone to tribunal for decision, a decision's been made, and the actual outcome, that GIS file doesn't exist. Is that correct?
That would be not quite that directly, but that would be the implication of a series of hearings before the tribunal over the last decade.
Okay. So that's a good question. I don't know how we best get around that right now. I think that would be something we need to discuss with our lawyers too, to see what the best approach is. What the regulation requires is a municipality to provide the documents that they have as per that calendar year. If the documents don't exist as a result of a tribunal decision, they don't exist. Obviously, we won't expect you to provide that information. But it is a really good question, and one that we'll need to think about a little bit more. I'm not sure that was one of the scenarios we encountered when we were doing sort of our drafting scenarios. And I'm not too sure the real world implications and how frequently that sort of thing happens. I'd love to take that conversation offline, but the best answer I can give right now is provide what the municipality has for that calendar year as best as they can, and then we can get into those sort of one-off scenarios, at a later time. But definitely something that we'll have to take back and follow up on. It's a really good question.
Decision on a number of matters that affect those specific geographies we're talking about. So we wouldn't be able to provide them until we have the minister's decision on some of those matters.
Yeah, so if you can only provide what you have at the time, right? So things that are still pending decision, we're trying to work as best as we can with the municipalities. Again, it's a new process for all of us, right? So provide us what you have available, and if these situation exists, like the inbox you're sending these reports to is just a staff person on the other end. So feel free to put in some additional context or color commentary about what we're receiving to help us better understand and interpret what's coming to us. And then we can take the next step as needed. But obviously don't go beyond being able to try to provide what you actually have and don't have. Stick with what the municipality has and can provide, and we'll start there. Yeah.
Thank you. And then picking up on that thought, the question that was asked about the standards that the GSI is developing. There's clearly a number of sources of legislation and other sources that they're using for those definitions. Those definitions do not correspond to the regulation in a direct way. So it's created questions for some of us participating in the technical committee as to the implications of being able to adopt and support those standards in a way that's going to conflict with the reporting under the regulation, and as we would expect the province to expand. So I'm wondering about how the province tends to harmonize those two exercises.
Well, that's just it, Michael. So harmonization will absolutely be a big part of it, right? So the regulation that we have now is filed, it's law, and municipalities are required to adhere to it. The data standards are still, they're still in production, and they haven't really been totally finalized and implemented yet. But when they are, we will absolutely make sure that our regulation aligns with the data standard, depending on, I'm not sure exactly yet how it's going to roll out. I myself am not involved in the data standard itself. So peripherally, I've been informed on how things are progressing, but we will make sure that everything is aligned with our regulation and the data standards, so that there isn't confusion amongst the municipalities about, when am I reporting this versus this, and what does this actually mean? Is this included in my report or not? We'll make sure that there'll be, and we've provided in the past a technical Q&A directly to municipalities as well. Something will be prepared for this sort of relationship between the data standard and our regulation as well, that we'd be happy to share with all the municipalities that gets into some of those details.
That would be great and much appreciated. I would add that there's a resource implication as to what the regulation is going to require, and anticipating that that may expand to other things.
Sure.
Then as municipalities, we're trying to satisfy the province's requirement with that same common understanding as the need to create and maintain and deliver effective and meaningful information for effective decision making. And so the regulation adds to the requirement for us to do this, and therefore we have to step up in order to be able to support.
Absolutely. Right.
I do in fact have a third question,
Go for it.
Which is in regards to AODA compliance. One of the challenges that we face as a municipality in using Esri Canada's technology as a case in point, and Jeff made some references to some other visualization geospatial technologies that are out there that we're using internally, is that it's a challenge for us to be able to use these technologies effectively and to be able to share and provide information, in part because of the interpretation of the AODA as it is and the province's guidelines. I'm wondering whether MMAH would endorse the use of specific technologies and name them, for example, ArcGIS Pro, ArcGIS Online, Tableau, as platforms that can be used for the display and dissemination of both geospatial and tabular information to the public as being AODA compliant. An actual statement in that regard would help us a great deal.
Sure. Sorry, I just missed, what was the compliance?
AODA compliant.
Oh, AODA. Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay, of course. Yeah. So I can't say from my perspective as just a staff person whether the government would go down that road or not. I will say though that all of our products that we develop and we publish are AODA compliant, or they should be. And so sorry, Michael, just for clarification, is your question if the City of Toronto, for example, was publishing information?
Whether or not, thank you. I'm seeking as to whether or not the ministry would specifically issue a statement to endorse the use of ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS Pro, Tableau, and other such tools as being AODA compliant with a reasonable effort by the municipality in order to achieve compliance.
I see.
But without requiring 100% perfection in terms of the particular tool to those standards.
Right.
So that if we made a reasonable effort, that would be that these technologies are recognized as compliant.
I see what you're saying. Okay. So I think that question is a little bit above my pay grade, but I can't say for sure whether or not the government would endorse that. But it's definitely something that I will take back to my manager and their team as well. I can't say for sure. It's definitely not something that's within my purview as a policy advisor, but a valid question nonetheless. So I'll take that one back. Sorry, Michael.
And Scott, if I may, we'll just we can take that back.
I forgot you were there.
It's okay. we can take that back and just consult with some of our colleagues across as well, because there's other folks that are responsible for the sort of the AODA compliance side of things. So we'll get them involved as well and see where we can go on that.
Great.
Hi, Scott.
Thank you. I didn't realize that we could see Charlene, but you guys couldn't see Charlene until just now. So just before we go to our next question, I just have a question of you, Scott. So I heard a lot of follow-up required on the question that was just asked. How will you ensure that follow-up goes to everyone in the audience?
Yeah, so anything that's related to our regulation, any changes that we're making or amendments that we're proposing, obviously are consulted on through the environmental and regulatory registries. Not everything we're doing with the regulation requires an amendment. So we do have a list for contact information for all 29 municipalities that are subject to the regulation. A mailing list, I should say. This is where we share guidance information, frequently asked questions, things like that. So we'll continue to use that avenue for now to make sure that all the information gets out to the municipalities. We've had success using that method. And then, of course, we can also utilize our Ontario.ca website for updates around the regulation. And there is the planning data at Ontario.ca email. So if municipalities have any questions at any time, feel free to send your questions to that email. We are working on improving the response rates, so please don't be discouraged, but that's another method that we'll get the information out to everyone.
Great, thank you. And if you're on the line listening and you have a question that you're not able to ask, send it to that email address right now. You got lots to do this weekend. So we have another question in the back.
Yeah, we had a question from online. If an application has been tabled or deferred by the applicant, do you want to know about it?
So right now, the way the regulation is structured is there are essentially 3 reportable actions that trigger the need for an application to be included in a report. Those actions are that the application was submitted. So it's the first time it was coming into the municipality. The second trigger is that a decision was made. So if a municipality arrived at a decision on that application, they're reporting the application because they made a decision. And the last reportable action is that the application was appealed. So if one of those 3 things are not true, when you're looking at an application about whether it should or should not be included in the report, that's your indicator as to whether or not it's a yes or a no. Was it submitted in this quarter? Was a decision made in this quarter? Or was it appealed in this quarter? And appeal decision is also included as part of a decision. So it's either a municipal decision or appeal decision. So if one of those 3 things are true, that's when the application needs to be reported. Other applications that don't fall within those 3 reportable actions are not to be included in the reports. And that's been one of the things that we've worked very closely with municipalities on. It's one of the nuances of the regulation that a little bit strange, but it's the way that we target the somewhat active applications. What activity is occurring at the municipality in that quarter for those various planning instruments?
I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions here. I see a question up in the front from Nancy.
Thanks, Jeff. Scott, this is just a quick one. It relates more to the 3 items you just identified, being the, I guess, the reportable actions. You mentioned submitted, decision made, and appealed. You haven't asked for anything as it relates to deeming complete, whether...
So we do ask for that. So deemed complete is one of the pieces of information you'll see in Schedule 2. That is, we are requesting that information.
But for committee of adjustment
but deemed complete itself is not a reportable action.
Okay.
So there will be an instance where, say, an application is submitted in quarter 1, and it's deemed complete in quarter 2. But the decision arrives in quarter 3, for example. That's a really bad way to explain that. Let me start over. No, that's right. Sorry. It's been a day. So for the quarter 3 decision, there's 2 reportable actions that occurred on that application: the submission in quarter 1 and the decision in quarter 3. So what should happen is that for your quarter 2 report, there was no activity on that application that's reportable. It doesn't need to be included in your report. We're really only focused on those reportable actions. So it comes in quarter 1, they submitted it in January. You guys deemed it complete in quarter 2. but the decision didn't arrive until Q3. We're only seeing that application in Q1 and Q3 because you're just reporting the activity that occurred on that application. But deemed complete is not a reportable action.
Okay. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
No problem.
Sorry, I was just told I was standing in front of the camera. So I think we're into our last question. I have it from the front here.
Hi, Jen Roberts with the City of Barrie. With so much focus on the number of units in the pipeline, it's always been surprising to me that the province isn't asking for unit counts. Is that something that might be a future enhancement or just not in the scope of this project?
Great question, Jennifer. Thank you. So there obviously has been a lot of talk about, housing starts, completions, proposed units, things like that. Obviously, when we're working towards the goal of 1.5 million new homes, it's important to remember that the regulation itself wasn't designed to address a housing specific issue, right? It was really more of a, we don't have any information about planning in Ontario from our municipalities. So let's get started. I could certainly see that, there'd be appetite to put something like that in the regulation. And if the government decides that that's the direction we're going to go, then of course we work at the pleasure of the government. But that would be a future amendment. All amendments, like I said, would be consulted on. I wouldn't say it's, not within the realm of possibility. It's certainly a planning metric. But I don't have any information about, where the regulation is going next. My director, Charlene might. I don't know if she has anything else she wants to say about that, but yeah.
I sure.
At this point, it's just focused on the current planning instruments. And like I said, a new data collection process, you want to try to start small, incremental changes, before you ramp up. And we're really still, I know it's been a year, but in the grand scheme of things, 1 year is not a ton of time when it comes to monitoring a land use planning system like Ontario. So it's still very much in its infancy.
I can have a few bars on that question. So obviously this government is super keen on showing progress towards the goal of the 1.5 million new homes. Given the event here today and hoping to reach out to folks in the near future about some of the thinking that we are working on in terms of enhancing the regulation as it currently stands. So there is interest in there's definitely interest in gathering more information from municipalities and also thinking about the scope of which municipalities may be subject to the regulation. So I would say stay tuned. You will likely be hearing from us in the near future. I guess as well, the additional 21 municipalities that also have housing targets. So we'll likely be connecting with folks soon to talk about potential enhancements to the regulation, and it could include the types of things that were just raised, as well as any fixes that are needed or there's been a lot of chatter on various social media accounts about where the government might be thinking of going in the next short while. So there may be a need to realign some of the data points in the regulation as well. So I guess stay tuned and we'll likely be back in the very near future to chat more. So I'll just leave it at that for now. A little belated Easter egg, I guess.
Right. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for answering questions today. Your team will be sticking around, so please come up and ask questions. And I believe, Charlene, you had something you wanted to say as well.
I just wanted to flag and let folks know too, as well, along with the work that we're doing on, looking at enhancements to the regulation. One of the key things is we've been working closely with Esri on really thinking about how we can make this process more efficient. We do have support internally to really sort of dig deep on what that could look like. So recognizing essentially the entire data team is standing at the podium right now. We are hoping to alleviate some of the workload on Scott and others' shoulders in terms of having to review Excel spreadsheets on a daily basis. He just started wearing glasses, I think, because of this. But, looking forward to really moving into the 21st century in terms of the technology that we're using and the technology that's available. So hopefully that will be coming out soon. And I just really want to thank Jeff and team for being such a great partner in this, and thank all the municipalities for working with us and the patience they've shown in terms of supporting us and getting to this point, and getting to this 1 year in terms of the data being in effect. So thanks to everybody.
Great. And thank you, Charlene. And I believe also you have maybe a little of an announcement of your own to say, if I may. I put you on the spot here.
So today's my last day as the director here in the planning policy branch. So I will be starting a new and exciting position come Monday morning. I will be more heavily involved in the housing side of things as the director of the Housing Supply Secretariat. So that will be, so I'll still be involved in the data side of things, but just in a different role. And won't be too far from Scott and team. So we'll make sure that this keeps moving forward as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being such an advocate for data and for change. And thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much. And really sorry I couldn't be there in person today.
Well, for everyone online, and that concludes our recorded session. So thank you for joining us today. For everyone in the room, I hope you stick around. We still have some amazing sessions this afternoon. We have lunch, take a 45-minute break. We'll be back at 12:45, and let's have some good conversations. Thank you.